persecution he went through, the imprisonment at Robben Island, everything else he had to endure from the apartheid regime. When he was elected president, he wanted to make sure there would be no revenge, there would be a peaceful transition to democracy. He almost single-handedly avoided a civil war that could have been so brutal. Christian Amanpour has covered the story together with me and so many others over the years. Christian, it's a sad, sad day, but 95 years old. He lived a very wonderful, long life, and he really made a difference to the world.
He did indeed. He lived an incredibly difficult life, and you heard President Zuma pay tribute to the incredible sacrifice that he made throughout his life for those 27+ years in prison, and also to his family, paying tribute to his family for making such a sacrifice on behalf of the world. And, you know, this is the towering moral giant of the 20th and the 21st century. It is very unlikely that we are to see the likes of Mandela again for a very, very long time. What he accomplished was not just being an icon for democracy and freedom and justice, but he was able to come out of jail after all those years of the most violent apartheid regime with no bitterness that he showed to the world. He kept the country together when it could very well have spun into a terrible civil war. And in fact, that was the fear around the time of the first elections. The Inkatha Freedom Party was on the verge of violence. He had to do everything he could to make sure that didn't happen. During the negotiations with then President F.W. de Klerk, there were many, many times when they broke down, each side accusing the other of bad faith, but then they got together again and continued to work this out. The world embraced Nelson Mandela. Every time you ask anybody, who is your most inspirational leader, everybody says Nelson Mandela, and that's for a reason. And in fact, tonight at the UN Security Council, not far from where we are right now, they are calling a moment of silence to remember and to honor him. He was the most incredible leader for our times, especially as we know the possibility of violence, of division, of paralysis and partisanship. He really was able to overcome that, and his long walk to freedom has benefited the whole world. And how ironic it is that the film of his own biography is coming out right now. There are premieres right now, last week in the Kennedy Center in Washington, tonight in London, where his own daughter, Zinzi Mandela, has been. And there is so much now that is coming out for people to be able to read and to reflect and to pause and remember just what gift this amazing man gave to the world. I interviewed F.W. de Klerk, who was his partner in the end and the dismantling of apartheid, one of the world's most violent, racist regimes that endured for so long. And I asked F.W. de Klerk, what did you think when you first saw him? What was your impression? And he said, you know, even though I had been briefed, even though I had done my homework, even though I had been told so much about him, I was staggered when I first met him. The dignity of this man, the physical size, the tallness, the slim bearing that was so proud really impressed him a lot. Their first meeting, he told me, was one just to get together. He had summoned Mandela from the Victor Verwoerd prison, and they just had a get-together meeting that first time, and then that led to the gradual partnership that dismantled apartheid and brought democracy and freedom to South Africa and showed that actually majority can rule. Wolf?
A truly, truly amazing man who made such a unique difference to the world, and not only to South Africa, but to the entire world. Christian, I want to show our viewers a live picture of his home now. People are beginning to gather. This is outside of Johannesburg in South Africa, only beginning to pay respects to Nelson Mandela at the age of 95, who has just passed away. We heard the announcement from Jacob Zuma, the president of South Africa. And we want to welcome our viewers who may just be tuning in here in the United States and around the world. We'll have special breaking news coverage of the death of Nelson Mandela here in the Situation Room. We're watching what's going on. Christian and Robin Curnow is in Johannesburg watching what's going on as well. We're only now going to begin, Christian, to get reaction. I am sure that leaders around the world will want to speak out and pay their special respects to this world leader. And from the President of the United States, the leaders in Europe, Africa, all over the world. It will only just begin now.
That's right. And indeed, President Zuma paid tribute to how much Nelson Mandela had been embraced by the world, that he was also the global representation of this relentless and unyielding struggle for freedom and justice.